This is Lee Dort, and I'm down to dunk. This is Lee Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
I'm Josh Giddey, and I'm down to dunk.
Hey, this is Kenny Helsel, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Darius Baisley, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Poku, and I'm down to dunk.
I love cereal. Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Cracklin' Oat Bran.
Oh, I can have these. I'm going to share with my team, but I'm going to hog most of them.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. Go to theathletic.com/down to dunk and get The Athletic for $1 a month for 6 months. Tons of draft content coming at you. Early next week, you can get Sam Vecini's draft guide, which will just be almost too much to read if you don't start immediately on, I think, Monday or Tuesday when it comes out. So check that out. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend, Alex Spears. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew?
And with us today, Rafael Barlow of NBABigBoard.com. Rafael, what's up, man?
Nothing much, man. I like the intro music. I was kind of bobbing my head a little bit. It's pretty cool.
Thanks so much for joining. Let's start with Chet. Chet is kind of the assumed pick for the Thunder, at least as of today. It kind of feels like that might be changing a little bit, but we'll stick with that. We focused on him the last month, and your first big board, you had Chet ranked 4th behind Ivy, Jabari, and Paolo. How close are those top 4 to you, and what are your major concerns with Chet?
I mean, I think it's an acquired taste. I think a lot of times, most of the year, people thought it was just a big 3. And then now I think you can throw Ivy in that mix. I don't think there's that much of a gap. And I'm a Banchero guy myself. I honestly feel like Banchero is the best player in this draft. I know that's not the consensus. He outplayed Chet when they matched up. I know a head-to-head matchup isn't everything, but I don't think there's that much of a gap. I think it's just a matter of stylistically, like, what do you like out of a player? I think, like, for me, I like someone that I can say, hey, I'm drafting you high. Go get me a bucket. 5 seconds left on the shot clock. The team took away our best options. We need a shot creator, and that's why I think Banchero is the best option. As far as Chet, I think he's probably one of the more difficult prospects that we've seen. You know, there are a lot of positives, and then there are some things that are a little bit concerning. And but yeah, I mean, you know that you should be able to get rebounding and shot blocking if the jump shot, especially in the half court, ends up translating. Then I mean, he's going to be really good. My biggest concern is that he didn't shoot the ball well in the half court. If you break down his numbers, a lot of his jump shots or high percentage 3-point percentage was really based off of him in transition. And so that's a little bit concerning for me.
You mentioned Banchero is number 1 for you. Yep. Listener at Speedy Craxton wanted to know, you've been beating the Paulo at number 1 drum all season. Why do you think most other media outlets aren't as high on him?
Same reason they weren't high on Tatum.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at the old scouting reports on Tatum, they said he can shoot, but he's not an efficient shooter from 3, has concerns about his defense, is a good athlete, but not super high twitchy, not super explosive, likes the ball in mid-range, settles for mid-range jumpers. That's, not the most analytics friendly. All of those stuff. I mean, you can just switch the names out, and the scouting report should be the same. I just think that I think when you're like 6'10", 250, people kind of assume like you're closer to your prime. Or if you're really slim, people say, well, if he fills out, he can be this.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion on it. I just think people may look at Banchero as, like one of the things you say, you read about him is, oh, he's the most NBA ready. He might win Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost as if people are assuming that he's closer to maxing out his potential, while the others, like Holmgren and Ivy and Jabari, people may think that they have a higher upside.
Do you think there are teams that, because you read mock drafts and it's like Paulo doesn't get considered in the top 2 spots, or if it happens, it's very rare. Do you think there are teams in the league where if they had won the lottery, he would have gotten more serious consideration?
Probably not. I think
Really?
that, I just think that teams, at least just to my knowledge, prefer Jabari and Chet. And I also think that, at least for Chet, and I've heard this from somebody that's connected, was that their front office may like Jabari or Paolo, but the ownership group is more intrigued with what Chet can do, not only on the court, but off the court also. So I think that can play a role in it.
And then we had a question about Banchero's versatility from listener at Tom O'Malley _. Is he only a 4 in the NBA, or do you think he could play the 3 or the 5? Because I know in high school he was a little bit slimmer and his game was slightly different, and then he beefed up a little bit at Duke. How do you see his position in the NBA going forward?
I think he's a 4, but he may play the 5 in some closing lineups, which will create all types of mismatches.
Yeah.
If you have him at the 5 handling the ball, whoever's at the 4, you can get creative and run some 5-4 pick and rolls or 5-3, 5-1. So I think a really creative coach. I mean, right now he's not in the Raptors range, but imagine like Nick Nurse with that creativity, that creative mind, what kind of system he would use to make sure that Banchero maximizes his skill sets and creates different mismatches for him.
Yeah.
And it also feels like the kind of system where he would have the defenders around him. Like if he's not immediately a good defender in the league, he would have that support on a team like the Raptors, as opposed to the team like the Rockets, where it probably doesn't matter right now because they're rebuilding. But that seems to be the main concern.
I mean, I don't think he's a bad defender. Like when I mentioned the Tatum thing, if you look at all the old Tatum scouting reports, they said he wasn't a good defender, maybe wasn't athletic enough, didn't play with a lot of effort on defense. And now here it is, 5 years later, one of the things people are saying about Boston is they don't have a guy on the floor in the playoffs that you can pick on and get a favorable mismatch. So I think that it's kind of being overrated in a sense. Like I've seen, and I know like basic stats on everything, but I've seen people who really love stocks. They take value in guys that get steals and blocks. And I think if you add them up, Banchero averaged a stock or 2 stocks per game. But yet the knock on him is, he's a lazy defender. And I also think part of it could be he was playing next to Mark Williams, who's such a good defender. And we see it in the NBA. When guys have a really good rim protector behind them, they tend to let the guy go by because they figure somebody's going to clean it up and they may want to get out in transition. And I think that was part of the reason why he may not have been as engaged, or he let guys go by him because he felt like Mark Williams was there to clean it up. And that which something he can fix, but I just don't think that he is this really poor defender that people are making him out to be.
Yeah. And if you are a believer in Paolo and like the Tatum comp, I mean, he's already got the passing that it took Tatum years to develop.
Yeah.
And also, if you're a Thunder fan that's a believer in Paolo, the Thunder value passing. They've shown that in the picks that they've made the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that he is, out of the 3 that are projected to go top 3, I think he's the best passer, and he is the best shot creator and scorer, which is weird that you have that and people don't have him consensus number 1.
Yeah, it is really interesting. A lot of Thunder fans are hoping the Thunder will use their second lottery pick on a wing. Listener at Logman92 wants to know who you would pick for OKC out of the trio of Shaden Sharp, Ben Mathurin, and AJ Griffin, assuming that they were all hypothetically available.
I don't even think all three would be available. Maybe. Oh, that's tough. On one hand, I can say AJ Griffin simply because at one point in the year he was shooting 50% from three. I felt like he was not going to miss. I think he ended up finishing around 45%, and I still think that there was more to his game than he was able to. He was kind of brought along slowly, and I think he just kind of settled into a role as a floor spacer. But the injuries are a little concerning, even though I don't think he's had like any surgeries. I just think it's been bad luck. I guess you can say any injuries, bad luck. But Mathurin intrigues me because he's the oldest of the three. And like coming into this season, I just saw him as a 3-and-D guy that scored in transition, played with energy, but he made some strides as a pick and roll ball handler, shot creator, mid-range shooter. So I think if, best case scenario, you could end up with a two-way guy that can defend multiple positions, knock down open shots, and create. So I think his upside is crazy. And then the last one, Shaden Sharp, I don't know much about him. I mean, I was at his pro day. I saw that, but
yeah.
I mean, who doesn't look good on one-on-one drills? But you can see like the athleticism. You can see all the potential and, everything that you look for in a wing. But just the sample size is small. But the Thunder have the luxury of being able to gamble. Yeah. So, and I would say just for the Thunder's sake only, just because that they have a timeline, your front office has security, I may gamble on Sharp.
Yeah, and the Thunder have been linked to him. And it's interesting. Dwayne Washington's his agent, who was also Shea's guy when he was at Kentucky.
But I don't think is it officially his agent? I know at the combine he hadn't really signed with an agency.
He hadn't. Okay.
Yeah, it was just an advisor.
Yeah, advisor. Yeah. Yes, that's probably the right word because he was Shea's advisor.
Yeah,
and he's Shaden's advisor, and you think that there's some link there. Like there's a reason why there's the rumor that he has the Thunder at the top of his list. He's probably heard good things from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on that. So, but yeah, it's a complete mystery. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think as a Thunder fan, you'd be excited if they took him, but there's so much to learn, like starting with Summer League. That'd be the first time you've really seen him play.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like people are excited because they saw his YouTube highlights. What I mean? That's the part about the Sharp scenario that is really interesting to me. It just shows like the power of social media because so many people like him, right? And I talked to different teams and nobody has ever denied his talent. Nobody has ever said that. But social media seems higher on him than teams.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a lot easy if you don't have your job isn't depending on it.
Yeah.
But teams are they really, really concerned about, just the lack of film. And one scout told me, we know he can play. We know he's talented. We just haven't seen him play in any real structure because AU or Nike EYBL is such freestyling and freewheeling and up and down that you really don't know how a guy plays with structure or the type of coaching where he's in a system. And they said that's probably the hardest part to determine outside of the talent because there are a lot of guys that are talented, but you got to fit into a system when you play in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm just calling it Shaden Sharp propaganda until we actually see him play. Just because they just throw stuff out on Twitter, it's like, oh man, he looks great. One-on-one.
Well, imagine if Jaden Hardy took the same route, top 10 pick.
Yeah,
he was someone that people were really high on coming into the season. Struggled with his efficiency, but still, if I'm not mistaken, led the G League Ignite in scoring, which is, the G League is full of grown men, and it hurt his stock. If he just doesn't play, you can say the same for Patrick Baldwin Jr. If they don't play, just sit out, I'm chill, I'm just, work out. That same intrigue and buzz that people have about Sharp would be there for them. And I think this could possibly change, the course of the next few drafts. Because if you got a guy that's projected to go top 5, you just might as well just protect his stock.
Yeah, that's wild.
You were on one of your recent podcasts. You were talking about that disconnect between NBA Twitter and those in the league who are actually working out these prospects. Would you say Shaden's the best example of where the opinion differs the most between how they are talked about on Twitter versus they're talked about in league circles? Are there other examples of that?
Yeah, he's the most. And again, it's no denying the talent. It's just a small sample size. And one of the more frustrating things that I've heard from teams is that they feel like he was being advised, which, it does make sense on his side, advised to stay low because his stock was high.
Yeah.
And so, of course, if you're you work for a team and your job depends on drafting somebody, you want to know how he plays and how he looks in this situation. You want to see him playing against the best level of competition that he can play against, at that stage. And so that's just the biggest concern. But yeah, I mean, it's a wide gap. Like I said, nobody has denied the talent. It's just a small sample size and a lot of unknowns.
So Jeremy Sohan is another name that Thunder fans have become familiar with in this range, often reluctantly because they're worried about his shooting. Listener at Boomer_Smash wants to know, what skill is most likely to develop? Sohan's jumper or AJ Griffin's on-ball defense and lateral mobility?
I don't think AJ Griffin, he's a better athlete than he was able to show. I think he's just kind of, I don't want to say relaxing, but maybe a little bit hesitant because he had the multiple lower leg injuries. I think honestly the easiest thing to fix is the outside shooting. And if you put in the work and then you have the confidence to actually shoot it and let it fly in a game, then I think you can be better. I mean, we've seen guys that couldn't shoot at all. They developed into reliable shooters. I mean, one of the best examples I have is not a superstar by any means, but Dwayne Dedman he's in Miami now, and he's not really shooting a lot of threes in Miami, but he had went his entire career without making the three, but he had been working on it. And Dwayne is a guy that didn't play high school basketball. He has a very good story he should tell one day. Grew up Jehovah's Witness. Mm-hmm. So his first time playing basketball was at like a junior college. So he's been in the NBA longer than he's been playing basketball prior. So
wild.
But I remember seeing him around. He used to spend his summers in Dallas working out. I remember seeing that he was working on his jump shot. So in my mind, I'm like, why are you shooting jumpers? And then it took one team, Budenhauser was in Atlanta. Saw him shooting in like a workout and told him, hey, you know what? Stop shooting now. We're going to come back tomorrow and we can see if you can do it again. And he said he shot it again, shot well. Then he said, all right, well, the first 7 plays of the season will script plays to get you open to shoot threes. And it worked. And then I want to say he shot maybe like 35-36% from 3. And then that's how he got like this $40 million deal from Sacramento. So I said all that to say this. Dwayne was a guy that had never played basketball outside of just pickup ball until he was like 19 or 20 years old. And then he developed into a decent NBA 3-point shooter. So if he can do it, I believe if you put in the work and the time, you can develop into a shooter.
That's kind of the story Thunder fans were always waiting to hear for Steven Adams, because it was like for years we would hear that he was like working on a 3-point shot. And then we got one corner 3 in a preseason game. We were so excited. He made it like first play of the game. And then we just never saw it ever again.
He never took another one again.
Yeah, that was always our dream.
And sometimes I think you can be put in a box, because I could see a coach looking at Adams. So nope, big fella, set this screen, get these offensive rebounds. And sometimes I think it can just take the right coach to give you the freedom. And for Dwayne, I know in San Antonio, he said he used to work on it, and they were like, no, we need you to get offensive rebounds. And it just took one coach, which is Coach Bud, that let him shoot, shot the ball decent. It helped him get paid. And then I think in Miami, they're more so only if you're wide or open, they're not going to run plays for him. But again, I think it just takes the right coach to believe in you.
So a name that we haven't talked about much is Blake Wesley from Notre Dame. In your most recent Trade Buzz post, you wrote that, quote, Wesley has drawn attention from lottery teams and could be one of the biggest risers by draft night. Wesley has several scheduled workouts remaining with teams selecting in the back end of the lottery. What can you tell us about Wesley's game, and do you think he could be a potential fit for OKC at 12?
Yeah, I like his game a lot. I actually had the opportunity to spend a couple of days with him in Las Vegas. And great kid. I mean, just an awesome person, first and foremost. And learning a little bit about his story, he was not, I don't want to say he was like not highly recruited, but he wasn't one of the top dogs that you heard about. And he missed like his whole EYBL summer because of COVID. So I think that lack of exposure kind of hurt him in a sense. So he didn't have like the top 10 buzz that some of his peers had. And then he went to a team that had like 6 seniors. So he was trying to kind of fit in a little bit. And so it kind of puts it into context why, again, he showed that he's a definite NBA prospect, but it just kind of puts it into context why he wasn't so highly regarded in a sense. But I like his potential, really smooth, good athlete, and he can pass. And so I think that with added weight, I think he's like at he told me like he's like 189 now, which he came into college at like 175. I think added weight would help him finish around the rim. That was probably his biggest concern, or a team's biggest concern about him. And I think with the Thunder, there's a lot of redundancy at guard. So
Yeah.
it's a situation where I try to think from different ends of the spectrum. If I'm an agent, I'm like, man, I like what they're doing there, but it's a lot of mouths to feed. It's a lot of guards. So I don't know if it's the best clear-cut path. But then I also had an agent tell me he likes the Thunder for his client because he's like, if you are the best guy, they're just looking for the right fit. And if they don't think you're that guy, they're going to push you to the side. And so he kind of used Teo as an example, how he played a lot one year. He was in the G League the next. So he's like, it's kind of scary in that sense. But he said they're just looking for the best guy. So kind of a long-winded answer. I think it would be an interesting fit, but I'm really high on his upside as potentially like a big point guard, but he can play off the ball. And I think the shooting is going to translate.
Yeah. And like the Teo story, like it's going to get even more extreme over the next 2 years because they're going to bring in a bunch of guys over the next 2 years. And it really will be like the best players are going to survive. Like everybody really likes Trey Mann and what he did this last year. Like Trey's got to go prove it again. And he's got to be better than he was last year. So I'm really interested to see how all that works, especially with adding some more guys in the mix. Rafael, you've made a name for yourself in international scouting, and that's one area that we haven't really covered yet a whole lot on our podcast. So let's start with, what are your thoughts on this international class overall? Is it a weak class? Is it underrated? What do you think?
I like it. I like it a lot. And maybe because I've spent some time with a few of the guys and got a chance to know them. I think there's going to be a few players that probably outperform the draft position. Okay. So I look at a guy like Ishmael Kamagate. I think he's going to be really good. Late bloomer in a sense. Wasn't really one of the most talked about guys in France, but he has bypassed a lot of people that were more highly regarded or, regarded and higher than him. 6'11", runs the floor, plays hard, can block shots. I think that he could be like this Clint Capella type center. Okay. I like Nikola Jovic. I like him a lot. I really was impressed with his play at the under-19s last year. 6'10", 6'11", can handle the ball. He's Serbian, and you guys know Serbians are really skilled. I don't know what's in the water there, but no matter how tall you are, you're working on your ball handling, your shooting, and your passing. And I think Thunder fans are familiar with with Serbians, with Pokashevsky. And I mean, Jovic is similar, not as slim, but just a big, skilled. I don't know if you call him a wing, but just oversized, skilled ball handler. And so he's in that same way. I like him a lot. John Montero is someone that I think is very interesting. He's not going to pass the eye test, but he always plays well. And then there's like Gabriel Procida, who I think fits a role as a 3-and-D guy. And then there's Matteo Spaniolo. I like him, this crafty, creative, uber confident scorer. that is young. I mean, he's young for his class, and there's him, then Hugo Besson, and then Ousmane Dieng, who I've seen mocked to the Thunder in a few different mock drafts. Very intriguing, kind of similar to Jovic in a sense. 6'10", can handle the ball. Is more so of a guard than a post player or big wing, but I like his potential. So I'm high on this class. It may not have like your Luka Doncic. It may not have like your top 5 guy, but I think that there's some value.
So I want to ask you about a few of those guys, starting with Jovic, who seemed to have some big fans last summer before he pulled out of the draft, but it feels like his stock has fallen somewhat during the current draft cycle. One of our listeners, Magnus Z88, wanted to know, what's Jovic's draft stock looking like going into draft week? Is it crazy to consider him to be in the mix at 12? Young, creator upside, and playmaking skills seems to fit OKC's profile.
I mean, I don't see him mocked that high, but it wouldn't surprise me either, because he does have, like you said, what OKC looks for, and the Thunder value passing, and he is one of the best passing bigs in this class. So I could see it. Again, I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Dieng at number 12.
Yeah. How concerned, because it seems like people are really worried about Jovic's defense. Is that as big of a concern as people make it out to be?
On one hand, I think it's a stereotype. I think it's very easy to stereotype Europeans as bad defenders. I think it's a lazy stereotype. I mean, there are going to be some concerns, as he may not be like the most crazy explosive athlete, but I think with his size and his mobility, he should be able to at least be a league average defender. I don't know if he's someone that you're just going to be able to just play off the court.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's talk about Ousmane Dieng a little bit. You were lower on Dieng on your first big board, but that was in April. What are your thoughts on Dieng as he's risen up your personal board?
So I was able to find out some details and kind of put his struggles into context. Now, the first half of the year, he was bad. I mean, It was like 20-something% from the floor, 17% from 3. I know at one point he was averaging 4 points per game. And doing a little bit of research, and I don't know why I didn't think about this at all in the first point. It was a error on my part. But we're talking about a kid that was 18 years old from France, moves to Australia by himself. And at the time, Australia had extremely tough COVID restrictions. So he wasn't able to have like family there. So just kind of put it into perspective. I mean, think about an 18-year-old in the States, and we're saying, hey, go to another country by yourself and perform with the pressure of being an NBA draft pick. And even then, for like an average American, Australia is an easy transition because there's no language barrier.
Right.
But now put them in a place where there is a language barrier. You got to learn on the fly, and you're 18, you're by yourself. I know 18-year-olds that struggle going to college by themselves.
Exactly.
So I think that was a major part of his early season struggles. And then once he got comfortable, you started to see the potential and why everybody liked him coming into the season. So that was an error on my part to drop him without really knowing the context of why he struggled so much.
What do you see his role in the NBA being? Like, is he going to be primary ball handler, secondary ball handler, more like a connector piece on offense?
I see him as like, and maybe this is a lazy comparison because they're both French, but I see him as like the Portland Trailblazers version of Nick Batum.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even with Batum, he was kind of ahead of his time. He'd probably be more valuable in today's NBA than he was when he was with Portland. So I can see him as that role, as your secondary ball handler, maybe in a pinch can be your primary, depending on the guys you have around him. So if you have like this, I don't know, dynamic scorer that is not really a point guard, but is more so of a 2 or combo guard, and you need somebody that can bring the ball up, initiate the offense, and then also defend, a bigger player, then I think he could be a really good complementary piece.
I was reading a scouting report of him, and they were talking about his defense and saying that he actually seems to project better as a defending smaller guys, even though he's 6'10" or whatever he is.
Yep.
And then they talked about some like aversion to contact. Like he doesn't play super physical. What do you think about those knocks against him?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I definitely think it's fair. I mean, I want to say he's one of the most physical or aggressive defenders, but I mean, the mobility and the length, I think he can be somewhat of a disruptor. He'll need to get stronger, but he has gotten bigger. I will say that I saw him last summer just randomly in LA playing basketball with some guys. I mean, it wasn't at like a rec center or anything like that. It was like an organized run. I don't want to make it seem like he was just at the wild hooping, but and so when I saw him again at the combine, he looks significantly bigger, even a little bit taller. So I think that I mean he has put on some weight, but he's still going to have to adjust to the physicality and get a little stronger. But I think Australia was a good test for him because the Australian league is pretty physical.
Yeah. We had Sam Vecini on our podcast yesterday and asked about potential targets at 34. He mentioned Gabriel Pachita. I'm not saying that right. Help me with my pronunciation.
It's Gabriel Pachita.
Gabriel Pachita.
I know Gabriel. I got that part right because I did ask him, but I think it is Pachita.
Pachita. Okay. Tell us about his game.
Just your very confident wing that likes to get it up, likes to let it fly, is a good shooter, but he's really good athlete. I think he's the best athlete. I shouldn't say I think. I'm 100% certain he's the best athlete from this international class.
Interesting.
Can run the floor in transition, again, play above the rim. If he develops a little bit more game off the dribble, then he could be something special. But at the very minimum, I see him as a 3-and-D, potential 3-and-D floor spacer because he has the athleticism to be a really good defender and someone that flies down the floor and just scores in transition.
So, Rafael, you've been all over the world, and one of our listeners at Cabebray1, hope I pronounced that right, wanted to know some of your favorites when scouting in Europe. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions. For instance, what's your favorite place to watch a basketball game in Europe?
Oh, it has to be. Ooh, that's tough. Well, my favorite place is depending on the team's playing. So I don't know if you guys see me post. I have this thing for like these crazy, wild environments in Europe where they got flares and the arena's on fire. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love just the intensity and the hatred they have. So now when I watch NBA games, like I'm watching the finals, you know how like the game is in Boston and you see like the Warriors fans sprinkled out and they're like, no, in Europe, you don't do that. You might not make it out. So I actually just, it's sad to say, I'll be honest with you, but I kind of like the element of danger. What could happen, whether it's the arena catching on fire or whatever. I enjoy that the most. So whether it's in Belgrade, Serbia, or Istanbul, Turkey, or Athens, Greece, I would say those are my favorite places to watch a game.
I was just watching a mini doc on YouTube of a guy who went over and watched a game in Turkey. FS was playing Real Madrid, but it was just like regular season. And the atmosphere was like insane for what we would think of as like a regular season game where, you know, you have like the loudspeaker doing the clap, you know, like directing fans what to do. Like it was out of control for a regular season game.
Yeah. And that's a big, so to put that into context, that's a big rivalry in a sense because those are two of the better clubs, but FS doesn't have and I want to say soccer or football, right? Football team. So they're a basketball organization. So usually the rivalries are deep rooted based off of soccer. So, and it carries over into basketball. So FS doesn't even have like a soccer team. They've been good at basketball the last few years. And then Real Madrid is Real Madrid. So you're talking about, you know, Real Madrid is known for soccer first and then basketball second, and FS is known for basketball. So they don't have a hatred for each other. That's just a strict basketball rivalry, which I mean, it is intense compared to the United States. Yeah. But it's even crazier once you get the two fan bases that hate each other from a soccer rivalry that's from 100 years ago. Like I've seen some pretty cool stuff. Like I've seen games in Turkey where the two teams hate each other. And this is crazy. Actually, you know, I tell you what, it happened to me this year. I went to a game in Greece, and a friend of mine played for Maccabi Tel Aviv, which is in Israel. And I go to a game in Greece, and he gives me tickets, right? So I look at my tickets. I'm walking up to the area, and I'm in this cage in a sense. Like I show my ticket to the guy, and he opens up this gate. This is in like the stadium, this gate, and then I'm only in an area of just Maccabi fans.
Mhm.
We can't like walk out to go to the concession stand. We can't walk to the bathroom. We're just in there because I mean it might go down. It might, So after the game is over, it's the same thing. They have to let all the home fans file out, and we're just staying there, and then they'll let us out. So,
Wow.
and that wasn't even an intense rivalry. So I've seen games in like Turkey where, and I love telling these stories. If the game starts at 7, the fans are there at 6 o'clock, jumping up and down, chanting. And I was doing some social media for a team. So I'm like filming, like, the guys warming up on the court. How like you watch or you see on Instagram 30 minutes before tip off, but the crowd is jumping up and down and they're chanting. And the social media manager says, you can't use that video. And I'm like, why? And he's like, well, I know you don't understand what they're saying, but it is very vulgar. And I'm like, but there's like 8-year-old kids chanting it. And he's just like, and when I say it was vulgar, it's like the NBA players wouldn't be able to handle the stuff that's being said. I mean, I got hit with a lighter one game. I was filming on the baseline, and all the guy did was shoot a 3, and he left his hand up and kind of backpedaled, but he left it up too long to where it seemed like taunting. Lighters, coins, and they heat the coins up. Like with their clear lighters, they'll heat them up. So if you do get hit with a coin, not only you get hit with a coin, you get hit with a hot coin.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I've seen series where like, and this will be my last one. I can go on. There was in Turkey, you had the 2 best teams in Turkey. So imagine the NBA finals, right? But the fans in Golden State were so rowdy that the league says we have to play this game with no fans. It is a danger to the refs. And that happened in Turkey, like their finals, no fans, not even family could come. And then I think maybe just last week, a team in Serbia just stopped playing in the middle of the finals because they were like, somebody's going to get hurt. So for whatever reasons, I don't know why, I enjoy that element of danger.
We're talking about Turkey. You'd probably be the best person to ask. Micic, obviously, he's coming off back-to-back EuroLeague final MVPs. He's shown interest before coming to the NBA. It seems like he might be showing interest again. Are there any teams around the league that you think make sense for Micic coming over at this point?
Yeah, it's going to be a combination of playing time. Like, he's a star over there. He's won. Istanbul is a great city. He's making a boatload of money. So it's like, does it make sense for me to go to a team and I'm going to be their 9th man or 8th man, or do I just stay here? I'm the star and I'm making a lot of money. So I think if he does come, it's a matter of fit and just saying that, you know what, I'm going to give the NBA a try.
Yeah. Okay. Back to my question about your favorites. What's your favorite food and drink in Europe? Like it could be like a specific spot that you always go to when you're at a certain city.
Honestly, I'm not a foodie at all.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. There was a spot in Athens, Greece that I liked, but I mean, it was just, I think, euros. I used to call them gyros as a kid, but they're just like these euros with French fries in it, and they may cost like, I don't know, $2. That was kind of like my go-to spot. But I'm not a foodie. I'm not one of these guys that likes to eat at nice restaurants in different parts of the world, man. Just give me a snack, and I'm probably going to spend my money on clothes or something like that. And I don't drink. I've never had a drink in my life, so I can't tell you anything about drinking.
So that might rule out, our listener also want to know your favorite nightlife.
Yeah. No, I didn't really do the nightlife. If I were into nightlife, I'd say Barcelona. I lived in Barcelona for like a month. Barcelona was great. I did live in Turkey for a year. I went out a few times there. That was pretty cool. A place that has a great nightlife that you would be surprised with is Israel.
Oh yeah,
Tel Aviv. it goes down in Tel Aviv.
Well, my last question was going to be, what do you think is the most underrated European city? Like a city that people wouldn't think of to travel to, but you think that people should put on their itinerary?
For Americans, I'd say Istanbul. I think the world knows how great Istanbul is, but for
Okay.
Americans, we don't really know how great Istanbul is. And it's a kind of a trick question because Istanbul is the only city that is half of the city is in Europe, the
Yeah.
other half is in Asia. So,
So it's kind of cheating. Yeah.
yeah, but the majority of all the entertainment stuff is on the European side. But I mean, I love Istanbul. I mean, it's cheap. So I was just there. I went a few times. I think the last time I checked last week, it was like the ratio was like 16-1 from their dollars. So if you have, so what is it? 16 of their dollars equals one of ours. So if you go over there with $1,000, it's the equivalent of having 16,000 Turkish lira. So not only is it a great city, it's you can get a lot of stuff in Istanbul. They have, if you love basketball like I do, you have 3 EuroLeague teams, or at least it depends. But you can have up to 2 EuroLeague teams, 2 Euro Cup teams, intense rivalries, easy to get out of, major airport. It just has everything that I look for in a city.
Then my last question on international prospects, just for fun, can you give us your quick thoughts on Victor Wembanyama in the 23 draft? Everyone knows his name by this point, but I feel like most of us have only seen random clips of him. What's your quick scouting report on Victor?
Man, he's incredible. Like, I would say if you want to watch him, watch the gold medal game last year at the under 19 where USA played France. He was the best player on the floor, without a doubt. Best player on the floor. USA wins because he gets in foul trouble. But on that Team USA roster was Chet Holmgren, Johnny Davis, Jaden Ivey, Peyton Watson. I mean, they had some really good players, and he was the best player on the floor. So imagine Chet with a little bit more stuff to his game.
Okay.
Chet with a little where I think I feel more comfortable if I had to choose between the two at the end of the shot clock, go create something for me. I think I would go with Wembanyama. Excellent shot blocker, maybe just as skinny as Chet, but I mean he was phenomenal.
Would you be surprised at this point if he isn't the number 1 pick next year, or do you think someone like Scoot Henderson still has a shot depending on how like the lottery shakes out?
Yeah, I think he'll be number 1. I think somebody's gonna go with a big if they had to choose between the two. I think that's kind of the tradition in a sense. Because if Jaden Ivey is not going number 1, that means people are going to lean towards bigs.
True.
And I thought
Ivey
was phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, I had a chance to watch him play this year, and it's a crazy story. Show you how dedicated I am to this basketball. I got married in Paris, and then the day I got married, I went to a Victor Wembanyama game with my wife.
Nice. I mean,
but I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be really good.
So we have a few more questions just from our listeners. The first from @Medicine Clam. We're hearing about all these workouts. You probably know better than us. How do different teams organize their workouts for prospects? Is it fairly standardized? Like a team will just kind of run guys through the same thing, or is it more tailored to each player when they bring them in?
Yeah, it's a tough question because there's like 30 different teams and they have different styles. Well, some may have the same style because they may come from the same tree, for example. Like guys that come from the Spurs system, they all do it one way. I mean, you can look at, for example, the Bulls, the Nuggets, and now the Timberwolves all come from that Denver tree. So they may do things similar. But yeah, it just depends. And sometimes I'm actually shocked at how things are ran. Like there was a prospect I was pretty close to last year, and he felt like teams didn't understand what position he played. So he said one workout he may work out with bigs, and then the next team he may work out with guards or wings. So everyone is different. Then I've heard like some teams it's just like conditioning. I talked to Darion Sebron on my podcast today. He said one workout he had to play full court 1-on-1. Oh, wow. And I've heard sometimes it's all about seeing how competitive a guy is. Like they're really trying to see what your strengths and weaknesses are. I've actually heard where I don't know if I read it or I heard it from an agent, but a team interviewed a guy and they wanted him to do a staring contest
Oh yeah,
just
I
to
read about
see.
that.
So maybe I read about it, but yeah, the staring contest because they wanted to see how competitive he was. Like if you're competitive in a staring contest, then you're going to be competitive in the game. Maybe that was their thought process behind it.
Right. Andrew, you're back.
I'm back. I don't know where we're at, Al, on our doc.
Oh, well, I'll just ask the next one. At Taylor Lynch 12, want to know what are the most difficult prospects to scout, form opinions on? EuroLeague, NBL, G League, or OTE? Which of those leagues do you feel like is the hardest to get a grasp on?
I'd say OTE because they're younger and it was so unknown. And as far as watching live NBL, because that is a long trip.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big geography guy, huge geography guy. I pride myself on my geography. And I was living in China and I went to Australia to go to a game. It was when RJ Hampton and LaMelo Ball played. And I underestimated how far Australia was from China. In my mind, I was like, oh, it's on the same side of the world. But it was closer for me to go from Beijing to Dallas than it was Beijing.
Really?
Yes. It was like a 19-hour travel.
Wow.
And I booked it like, oh, I'm going to go watch the game I'll be there a day and a half and I'll come back.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was literally like me going to Beijing or going from Beijing to Dallas to grab my favorite hat and then come back. I was exhausted. So that time difference can make it tough. Honestly, I'd say it's between OTE because it's so unknown, and Europe because if you're like Pokashevsky, for example, and this is probably the best example for a Thunder podcast. He had a great under 18 tournament, but then he was not good enough to play for Olympiacos' senior team.
Yeah.
But you have to project how he'll be, and he's playing in like Greek second division. The Greek second or third divisions aren't really good. But then on what makes it tough is he wasn't getting minutes on Olympiacos senior team, but he can get minutes in the NBA. That's because in Europe they're not really into developing guys. You have to win. There's no draft. There's no reward for losing. So you have to be ready to come in and contribute to play. And which makes it tough because let's say he did play for Olympiacos. He may have just kind of suited up and just kind of been like their 11th or 12th man. So how do you evaluate him when, only thing you can really see is, oh, he shoots it well in warmups. He moves well. Okay, let's draft him. So that makes it tough.
Andrew, you're muted. Still muted.
I'm really struggling right now. Listener Zach Deeg, were there any players this year where the variance between the eye test analysis and analytical analysis was different? And how do you reconcile the differences between the two?
So the eye test and the analytical was different.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll use Chet.
Okay.
The eye test says he's a good shooter, but then when you look at the analytics, it says in the half court he only shot 33% on jump shots.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, he shot 39% from three. So when you break it down from transition shooting to half court shooting, the half court shooting numbers were kind of alarming for a guy that people are projecting to be a good shooter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. I think of that question makes me think of Tari Eason, just because of what statistically, oh my gosh, why isn't this guy the 7th pick?
Yeah,
and then watch him play, and you're like, oh, okay, I think I understand now.
Or here's one, one of the knocks on Keegan Murray is self-shot creation, right? The ability to create his own shot. Well, he was one of the best isolation scorers in the country.
Yeah.
It wasn't, he may not have moves or shake and bake, but he was very, very good at isolation. And I think he ranked in the top 80 percentile in all of college basketball.
Yeah.
Are there any stats that you rely on? There was a little thread going on underneath the tweet when I was asking for questions. You mentioned that you don't like using per 36 numbers. You mentioned earlier, blocks and steals, how a lot of people will latch onto those. Are there any stats that you specifically like to look at for a prospect?
I like to look at. I can tell you what I don't like, and I was
Yeah,
commenting
yeah,
on
do that.
per 36.
Yeah.
I saw like this per 36 where it said James Wiseman was, and I kind of used it. I didn't have enough characters in the tweet, but it was, I guess the tweet said Banchero's per 36 numbers weren't as good as Holmgren's and
Right.
Jabari's. And so I had mentioned that I remember seeing this article, and it came from like a Warrior site. Per 36, James Wiseman, and it was like the best centers in the NBA were like Jovic, Karl Anthony Towns, Embiid, Wiseman. And my theory behind it is, it's kind of simple. It's like, well, he should be playing 36 minutes, So,
Yeah,
right.
And I remember one year, Bismack Biyombo's per 36 were better than DeMarcus Cousins. So I'm not really too big on per 36. And if I'm not mistaken, the reason they started using per 36 as a guide was because remember in like the 2000s where guys were playing like 42 minutes per game. And I think one year there was like 50 guys that played over 36 minutes per game, which nobody does that now. And so if I'm not mistaken, the per 36 was to even it out from the guys that were playing 42 minutes to the guys that were playing 24.
Yeah.
But now you're seeing the per 36 comparing guys that played 12 minutes to guys that played 32, which I don't think that, I think you have to take it into context.
Yeah.
Oh, I know Thunder fans have used it for terrible reasons before. I remember using it for like Jeremy Lamb, like thinking that he was going to be like the next Klay Thompson based on like a per 36 comparison.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to use it for like Mike Muscala this year, it's like, well, Mike Muscala would never play 36 minutes in a game,
Exactly.
Effectively.
But that's the thing with numbers. You can kind of shape them to any way you want to support whatever you want it to support, whatever your theory is.
Mm-hmm. Rafael, we've kept you much longer than I anticipated. We really appreciate you coming on the podcast, answering all our questions. The draft is about a week away. It's going to be super fun. Go follow Rafael on Twitter at Barlow500 and go to NBABigBoard.com for just some great analysis on the draft. And also listen to the NBA Big Board podcast. So if you're just a draft junkie and you need more draft content, he's putting out podcasts. You're doing 5 days a week, right?
Yeah. 5 days a week. And then the last 2 weeks, I've opened it up to doing guest appearances.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised I have a voice by now.
Yeah.
Now,
we really appreciate you joining us, man. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for reaching out. I enjoyed the questions. So anytime you have something similar, you want to do a Q&A, there was so many questions on Twitter. Reach out to me and we'll definitely make it happen. I enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it after.
Yep, sounds good.
Who these guys are. So yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Rafael.
Yep,
Thanks,
no problem.
Rafael.
And we'll be right back after this quick. Ordinary, the truth is that ED is really common. In fact, 52% of guys ages 40 to 70 experience some form of erectile dysfunction. Go to GetRoman.com/dunk now and speak to a U.S. licensed healthcare professional about erectile dysfunction and get $15 off your first month of treatment. Roman's system is completely confidential and totally discreet. No big logos or labels on the package. With Roman, you can get a free online evaluation, ongoing care for erectile dysfunction, all from the comfort and privacy of your home. A U.S. licensed healthcare professional will work with you to find the best treatment plan. If medication is appropriate, it ships to you free with 2-day shipping. The whole process is straightforward, convenient, and discreet. Getting started is simple. Just go to GetRoman.com/dunk and complete an online visit. Take care of your ED without leaving home. Complete an online visit today and connect with a U.S. licensed healthcare professional to take care of it. Go to GetRoman.com/dunk today, and if you're prescribed, get $15 off your first month of ED treatment. Make sure you're ready to have the confidence and control this summer. Roman ready. It's heating up outside, and when it comes to stylish essentials perfect for the hotter days ahead, there's no better option than Mack Weldon. From hanging at home to the much-needed vacation, the conference room to happy hour, they've got you covered. Their innovative daily wear system takes the guesswork out of getting dressed for most indecisive guys. Listen, their swimwear is outstanding. And not only does it feel nice because it's made with just premium materials, but you just look good. You know what? If you're into looking good, get yourself a Mack Weldon swimsuit. Mack Weldon's premium polos easily elevate your plans with fabric technology they've built in. Their lightweight silver peak polo and new super soft Pima t-shirt polo are great for summer. I'll be wearing them everywhere with the Maverick Tech Chino short and the Radius Flex short. Two others that are must-haves for this season are definitely the board shorts and the swim trunks, as I mentioned before. They're just outstanding. So be sure to check out Mack Weldon for yourself. Save 20% on your first order. Visit mackweldon.com/dunk and enter the promo code DUNK. Again, that's mackweldon.com/dunk and enter the promo code DUNK for 20% off. Stock up on the warm weather essentials you've been missing. And we're back after that quick break. I think my internet's okay now.
Man, what was going on?
I don't know, bro. That was bad. That was really terrible.
It was actually a good time for it to happen because I was just asking questions about Europe. And you're gone again. You're frozen, Andrew. Oh my gosh, Andrew. All right. Well, I guess it's going to be an Al Baby Cake show for right now until Andrew figures out his internet. What we wanted to talk about before Andrew left was some of the scuttlebutt that has come out this morning. Now, I believe this was from Jonathan Gavoni, ESPN mock draft. And he brought up the idea that Sacramento may be willing to move the fourth pick for a veteran. And the teams that he brought up, I think it was like Detroit, some other team, and Oklahoma City. And the names that were brought up included one, Lou Dort, which is very interesting because on the one hand, you go on Thunder Reddit, Andrew, you go on Thunder Reddit, and they do not want to talk about the idea of trading Lou Dort. They do not want to hear it. Don't bring it up. Don't say his name. But Jonathan Gavoni of ESPN, we trust him. Now he brought him up just as like kind of throwing out names. It felt like it wasn't like a sourced thing. He was just saying other people around the league have brought up Lou Dort, which I think makes sense just from the standpoint of who else would it honestly be? If you're like who else is there on the Thunder that would entice the Kings?
And honestly, the prize would be not necessarily Dort. Like you give them Dort just because he would help them now. But the prize would be a juicy first round pick, like in the future, that either could be traded, this summer for somebody else.
Yeah.
If you were to trade one of those like unprotected Clippers picks, like 2026 Clippers pick, like that's pretty juicy. Or if you were to trade one of the Rockets picks, those are some juicy picks. So to me, it's saying like, hey, listen, we can give you Dort, 12, and a valuable first that you can trade for somebody else that can help you now. And so now they can take somebody at 12, have Dort to help their defense today, and then potentially use a pick to get, whoever. Like maybe they could use maybe the Pistons would want that for Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I feel like the Kings would have to have another trade in place before they did a deal like that. Because if you're planning to win next year and you only come out of the draft with your one vet being Lou Dort, like I just don't think that's enough. Like he's kind of a weird fit because both him and Davion, if you're playing all of them with Fox, they're kind of undersized because now you want Dort playing the 3. And obviously Dort can do a lot of things defensively, but I feel like some of his best moments have been against like lead ball handlers like De'Aaron Fox that we saw earlier this year, or like James Harden. And so like in this role, he would have to be playing the best like wing player on the team, which again, he can do, but like, is this the best use of Dort? And then they desperately need shooting. De'Aaron Fox was not a good shooter last year. Davion Mitchell wasn't a good shooter last year. Dort didn't shot under 34%. Sabonis isn't shooting. I just don't buy that at all for the Kings.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. He's just a taller, less point guardy Davion Mitchell.
Yeah.
That's what he is. And why would you? It just makes you can't play all your best players at the same time then, which has been a Kings problem forever. If they had kept Halliburton instead of Fox, I might like that pairing better than Mitchell and Mitchell and Halliburton. I might like Dort and Halliburton better, but they didn't. And if you're the Kings and you can come away with Ivy, or you can come away with Dort and assets, it's just okay, this does not pass the test for me. This does not pass the test of making sense for the Kings. Now, and here's another reason why people are wow, the Kings are just stupid. Listen, they may do something dumb. That's totally possible. They're going to do something dumb in the name of winning now. Bringing Lou, I love Lou. I think he's great. I think he's a great person. I think he's a good basketball player. I don't think Lou Dort is getting you closer to the play-in if you're the Kings. So they're going to do something dumb in the name of getting to the play-in. Jeremy Grant makes way more sense. He's a position need. He can play next to Sabonis. You can play all your best players next, all at the same time. That's great. People brought up on Twitter, adding Kenrich Williams. I'm sorry, Kenrich Williams is not a needle mover for teams. He's just not. He's a player that you add to a contending team to bolster your bench. He's not a player that you add to a team that's just desperate for the play-in to get there. I mean, if they just were hell bent on doing a deal with Oklahoma City, it could look like Dort, Kenrich, 12, a future Rockets or a future Clippers pick. And then it's okay, that seems like you stacked up enough things to get you to 4. But then you just start thinking about it logically. If the Thunder had the 4th pick and the Kings had that package and we're throwing that at the Thunder,
you would laugh.
You would just be what are you talking about? Logically, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
You sound crazy. That's what we would be saying to Kings fans who suggested that to us.
I mean, we're telling them that 4 and a top 1 protected pick in next year's draft sounds crazy.
Yeah.
2. Just think about how 12 and just some stuff that we kind of like for 4. It's just, I don't know. The Thunder just don't have the right piece. I mean, if they had a veteran like Jeremy Grant or somebody like that on the roster to throw at them, then I would say that 12 and a veteran like that makes some sense. But Dort's just not there. And if Dort was there, I don't know if they would trade him, but he's just not. He's not a premium asset right now.
So this is crazy because of the circumstances, but trading back to 5 and getting Jeremy Grant, obviously I think that would be ideal for them, but I don't see why Detroit would do that. You'd have to really be convinced that they are going to take Jaden Ivey and that's who you want. The other option that he brought up that I forgot about was Indiana and Miles Turner, which would be hilarious because you're pairing Sabonis with Turner again. But that idea actually makes more sense. Moving back to 6, that sounds like fair value. You're moving back to 6 and getting Miles Turner for 4. But the idea of pairing those guys up again and having to relitigate whether those guys are a good fit.
Oh my God.
I feel like Caitlin Cooper would go crazy if she had to write any more articles about Sabonis and Turner.
It would be so frustrating, as a Kings fan. And then you're just giving Ivy to them. You're just going to give them Ivy?
And Halliburton, yeah.
And Halliburton. You're you know what? We're going to give you the more favorable of the two, and we'll take the guys that you were arguing about for the last 3 years as, if they even fit, and we'll take on that mess. What in the world? What is going on there? I mean, I guess if they had a player like De'Aaron Fox in Indiana, maybe that's a better team, but I don't know.
That's why I think I agree with Jake Fisher on the Slam and Jam last week, the Slam and Jam, when he said that he thinks the most likely scenario is they just stand pat and use the pick.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like if these are the deals that are out there, like if this is it,
You
I
better.
mean, we're talking about like the Blazers using number 7 to get like OG or like DeAndre Ayton or something like that. And we're talking about this Kings using the 4th pick to get Lou Dort. Like this doesn't make any sense. None of this lines up.
No, it makes 0 sense whatsoever. I would trust me. I would love for the Thunder to have Chet and Ivy.
That'd be awesome.
Thursday night.
Very
That would be wonderful. And even if it costs Lou Dort, if it costs a future first, fine. That's fine. Like you have to use these future firsts to get something, to swing for the fences anyways at some point. And if your team is Shea, Ivy, Giddey, who cares, Chet, that's awesome. Like that's a great way to, end your second draft, Yeah. But I just have a really, really difficult time understanding how they actually get Jaden Ivey and it makes sense for all parties. And Sam has done trades that don't make sense for all parties before. So you can't just like outright just say like there's no way it happens. But I would just put the odds at like extremely, extremely low.
Well,
they
you just
are able to pull something off like that.
Even if people dislike the Halliburton for Sabonis trade, like the 4th pick in this draft and Tyrese Halliburton, they're in the same ballpark of value.
Yeah.
Because of the way people think about Jaden Ivey. So like they got whatever he is, a 2-time All-Star in return for Tyrese Halliburton. They're not trading that 4th pick for like a 5th guy in their starting lineup.
Yeah.
Or even like I think it's crazy to even think of them trading that for Jeremy Grant. Like I would want way more than that for Jeremy Grant. Just take Ivy.
Yeah.
Please don't
be stupid. Just
don't
take
be stupid.
Ivy. Don't, unless you want to be stupid and take Lou Dort and a future pick in 12. Then
yeah. If you want to be stupid,
by all means, be stupid and do that. But the Kings would just stay on the treadmill. Like that's just staying on the treadmill. Ivy's your ticket off the treadmill, and they might not even realize it because they're enamored with De'Aaron Fox. I don't know, man. It's such a weird situation there that it's volatile.
The other names mocked to OKC in Gavoni's latest mock draft. At 12, he has him taking Ousmane Dieng.
Yeah.
And then at 34, which by the way is before Jeremy Sohan is off the board. He has Sohan going at 13 to the Charlotte Hornets, which is interesting based on our conversation with Sam Vecini.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 34, he has the Thunder taking Jalen Williams from Arkansas.
Yeah.
The center.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And then
I actually saw Jalen Williams at the airport.
Oh, really?
A few weeks ago. Yeah. But
did you say what's up?
I said what's up. I don't like this.
I don't like this.
Yeah, I don't like this.
Jonathan Wasserman also released a new mock today.
Okay.
He still has, I mean, everyone seems to still have the top 2, even though there's been rumblings. He still has it going Jabari Chet.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 12, he has AJ Griffin falling.
Okay.
Which I think we would be excited about.
I like that better.
Which also, by the way, he has Jeremy Sohan falling to 15.
Does he?
Interesting.
If you get Chet, I would want to pair him with Sohan. Like that's how I feel. That's how I felt for a little while. I just think the defensive pairing is insane. Like it sets you up to have a foundation of a elite defense where you kind of worry a little bit about the point of attack right now with the Thunder. But if you have those two, obviously the shooting is going to be an issue for a minute. But you're gonna
for a minute.
Sam is gonna have to figure that out on some level. That's if you do take him, that's where I think the conversations with Lou get a little complex. And he's gonna have to prove that he's a career 40% 3-point shooter from the corners. If he can continue that, at least it doesn't have to be 40, but if he's in the high 30s, then things don't look as bad, you know.
Yeah,
'Cause
there's so much you'd be banking on in that lineup. Like one, you're banking on Shea getting back to what he was 2 years ago
yeah.
from 3. You're banking that the 39% for Chet is real
Mm-hmm.
and not something you should be worried about, as Rafael just brought up with his shooting in the half court. And then you need like also, in addition to those two guys, like you're kind of already like banking on them, even though it feels like tenuous.
Yeah.
Then from the other 3 guys, you need another one of those guys, whether it's Giddey, Sohan, or Dort, to become like a very good shooter.
Yeah, it's true.
That sounds scary.
The thing is, you have time. They're not. There's no rush to be good next year. You know, there's no rush to be good next year or even the year after, frankly. So you've got time to figure that out.
You've got time, but like you also have to start getting something in place. Like being the worst offense in the league year after year after year. Like, what are you building? What are you laying the groundwork for?
I think they would be the worst. I think that those guys. I mean, Chet obviously has a high ceiling as an offensive player. I think so. I don't think Sohan's like some Andre Robertson redux. You know, like he likes to have the ball in his hands. He likes to be able to deliver passes. He likes to be able to be a pick and roll ball handler and the roll man. Like there's a lot more to him than Andre, who was scared to touch the basketball at times.
But again, like, is that what we need? When you have Shea and Giddey, are we really looking for a guy who's like doing all this?
I think he'll shoot it. I just think that he'll shoot corner threes. So I think that he will shoot corner threes. I think that guys with his level of confidence will shoot corner threes.
Andrew, I just want shooters on the team. I mean, how often last year did we see, whether it was Shea or Giddey, breaking down a defense? That would usually be Shea.
Yeah.
Or just Giddey, like getting guys open,
Mm-hmm.
wide open threes, and they would just be wasted over and over again.
Yeah, I understand.
I get that, like, you have a lot of time, but eventually the guy who's going to be in that role is going to be someone who shoots really well. Because if you're not just generating those threes for fun, you're generating them to make them. And so eventually you need a guy who can make them to make this all make sense. So I get that they have a lot of time, but like they've already shown what they want to do. They're kicking out to 3-point shooters the entire season and no one's making them.
Yeah, I know. I think part of that, I think, is by design, honestly. I think they're just going to take whoever they think will be the best player. And if they think it's Sohan, they'll take him. And
I'm going WPA.
And if they think it's, I just watched a lot of Ousmane Dieng, and there's some stuff about him that I get is thundery, but there's just, I can't. I've not been inspired when I've watched him, I guess.
See, for me, I feel like he's a guy they would have taken if they didn't take Giddey last year. Like if Giddey wasn't on the team and we had instead had like Mobley or whoever, like Jalen Green, then like the argument for Dieng makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
But with Giddey on the team, it's just like, what is he actually going to do on the Thunder?
Yeah, I don't understand it because he's not a strong shooter either. You know, that's where I would be excited about AJ Griffin just because of the shooting, or Johnny Davis even, just because I think that he's going to be able to score at the NBA level. But Dieng, he's a project. Like he's definitely a project. He's got to work on his body a lot. He's got to work on his shot a whole heck of a lot. And, you know, Presti at the end of the season talked about physicality and how they need to be a much more physical team. And some guys you can teach that to, some guys you can't. And I just wonder they're going to do their due diligence on him to see if he could possibly be a guy that could show some more aggression. But man, I don't know. He does not fit that profile a whole lot to me, other than like being big and passing. And maybe that's enough. You know, I think that was enough for them to take Darius Baisley. But
Yeah.
that's in the 20s. Like, this is a lottery pick. I don't know. I wouldn't. I could talk myself into Jang if they took him, but to me, I would rather have like Griffin or Sohan today. Or
So
yeah.
I got to mention Kirk T in the chat because he's been spamming messages about David Roddy the entire show. So let's just talk about David Roddy real quick because he mentioned David Roddy shooting, which it's true. David Roddy did shoot 44% from three last year at Colorado State. But the thing that worries about me, and there's been guys like this before, Davion Mitchell would be the other one, is that he's not a good free throw shooter. He shot 69% from the line.
Yeah.
And his 2 previous seasons at Colorado State, he shot 19.5% from three and 28% from three. So yes, he had this nice jump on 3 attempts per game, but I'm not drafting him with the idea that like that's definitely translating. I'm still like super worried.
Yeah.
But he is super fun. We love the idea of him.
Especially with Chet, just having the skinny man, big man,
6'5", 250.
Built like a brick house. I think that's something that I want to see. Definitely. I don't know if he'll be any good or not. He's got Wendell Moore at 36. I mean, I would take him at 34. Definitely over Jalen Williams. He's interesting. He's a young junior. He's a connector piece, certainly, on the wing. I mean, I would rather have him. Christian Brown goes a couple picks before the Thunder, but if he's there too, I like him there as well. David Roddy's going 30 in this mock draft, so he may be out of the range for the Thunder. Jake LaRavia is another guy I like, but they have him going to Golden State, which just feels right. Yeah, it's gonna be so interesting to see what the Thunder do. I think it's most likely that the Thunder pick at 2 and 12. But
yeah,
they're just because you can't bet on a trade happening, especially in the lottery. You just don't know. And the other team has got to be amenable to it. Just because the Thunder want to move to 7 or just because the Thunder want to move to 4, it doesn't mean that you're going to get there. The Thunder wanted to move from 6 to 3 last year. Like, they wanted that very badly and couldn't make it happen. So just wanting something doesn't mean that you get it. And we don't know what the Thunder are willing to give up in these deals. Is it enough to give up one of those like juicy picks from the Clippers or the Rockets? Like, I don't know. I don't know how these other teams value those things, especially right now. I don't know. Like, maybe getting to 10 with Washington, it could be possible if you traded 12 and a future pick that's maybe not as juicy. Maybe you trade them their pick back. Maybe that's something that could be amenable for them, but I don't know. To me, it's probably not worth it to trade that for 2 slots where you can get a player this at the same caliber. So I've been like firmly team don't take a center in the lottery and firmly like just probably stay at 12 just because guys fall to that range every single year. It just happens. So I'd be comfortable with doing both of those things.
Yeah, I was talking to SportsFan405 on Twitter that like if I'm really being honest, the reason why I want Presti to trade up is because then I would know that he got his guy. Like you would know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Presti got the guy he wanted. Whereas at 12, even though you'll talk yourself into whoever, you'll still be wondering like, is that really who they wanted, or is that just who happened to fall?
Yeah.
But if he moved up to 7 and took literally anyone, you would be like 100% on board. Be so excited.
Yeah, who would be your least inspiring player if they moved up to 7? If they took him, you'd just be like, oh. Really?
Honestly, like that's the kind of move that would get me over the line with Jeremy Sohan.
Okay.
Like if he was that aggressive to go get him, then I would be like, okay, fine, I will buy in. But until then, I'm worried. Same thing with like Malachi Branham would be another one that was brought up a few pods.
Branham, I'd be like, okay. I would just be saying like, all right, I got to see it. Like,
yeah, but that's the kind of guy where like I need to see him be aggressive for me to buy in.
Yeah, if you took Jalen Duren at 7 too, I'd just be like, all right.
See that I would be excited if they moved up for him. I'd be excited if he was at 12.
Yeah.
I get our thing with centers and not taking them high, but I don't know. I'm not sold. If certain guys that I like are gone by then, like Johnny Davis, if he's gone by then, I would be pretty excited.
Yeah,
about
like
Jalen
Sohan,
Duren.
Griffin, Davis, Sharp are all gone at 12, and he's there.
Then he
him
might
and-
be one of my top choice.
Yeah, if it's between him and Usman Jang, I would probably go Duren.
Yeah, I definitely would.
Because I do think that just having a lob catcher with Giddey that will catch everything, that can be meaningful, and he can be the anchor of a defense. I don't like him and Chet together. I'll just say that. Like I don't like it. I don't buy it.
You don't buy it.
I don't buy it whatsoever. Because I think Chet's going to be the center of the future for the Thunder if that's who they get. Now, if it's Jabari, all right, whatever. Jabari's not a center. And he's probably not going to be a center.
Yeah.
So you can play him and Duren together. I like that a little bit better. Although that would not be my preference.
I know these things don't mean anything, but I was reminded that Jabari has not scheduled a workout with Houston.
Yeah.
And it was just a good reminder. Like obviously he still could drop from 3. Like if Orlando took Chet number 1, it's not impossible that OKC would go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that is an interesting little bit of data that I'm trying to remind myself.
I feel extremely strong today that it will be at 2, one of Jabari or Chet. I feel very, very strongly about that.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be Paolo. I don't think they're going to reach for Ivy. I feel pretty strongly that it's going to be one of those two at the top. I could be wrong, but I feel very strongly about that. Like I don't think they're going to consider Paolo at that slot. I think that it will be one of those bigs, and I think preferably it will be Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, I would be excited if it's Jabari though, because I understand. Like, there's a lot of like smart NBA people, quote unquote smart NBA people, who have Jabari as like the 4th in that group.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally get the argument for why, but I feel like OKC is the one area or the one spot in the league because of Shea and Giddey where like all of his weaknesses are not completely washed away, but they just don't matter as much. And all of his strengths are going to be amplified because of what that team needs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to play, if you're just like, hey, we're going to play 5 out and small and fast, like that's where you can take Sohan. And I think you'd feel better about Sohan next to
if you had Jabari. Yeah.
Because he is just undoubtedly a lights out shooter. And with Giddey setting him up, I think he's going to be like a 44% 3-point shooter. Like I really do.
Even if he does end up being like the high-end role player that some people are worried that he might be. You know, he gets comped to Richard Lewis, or people say like tall Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Which I mean that obviously would be awesome.
Klay Thompson would be the best.
I'm still like okay with that because of who else is on the team right now. And I know I shouldn't worry about fit at number 2, but I would be pretty excited if it was Jabari.
Yeah, I think you should. I think that you should be excited whether it's Chet or Jabari. The competitive nature of both of them, I think, is an important thing. And I think the Thunder will take to both of them. Ivy I'd be more confused about. But
that'd be such a chaotic draft night.
It would
if that happened.
Then what do they do at 12? I mean, it would be
then they go tie at 12.
Oh gosh. Okay. Don't
4 guard lineup, Andrew.
Don't do this.
Muscala at the 5.
It's a little bit of a signal that like, yeah, we're gonna be bad next year.
Yeah, that would definitely be my big takeaway from draft night if they took Jaden Ivey. It's like, oh, okay, we're gonna be pretty bad next year.
The tank is on, baby. If that's the case, if they do something like that, then they take like Kendall Brown at 34. It's like, okay, well, this is a signal to the league that like we are in the tank race for good, everybody. Like, don't worry about us.
So next week, Andrew, not having a guest, it's back to just you and me. It's going to be the day before the draft.
Yeah.
So we're going to have all the latest scuttlebutt.
Extreme scuttlebutt.
Extreme scuttlebutt.
We got a little bit. We got a taste of it today, but there's going to be a lot next week. I think that was a very good idea of things that might happen next Wednesday. So,
and who knows? Maybe there'll be a trade by then.
It could be. Extra long pod today, just because it's fun. It's a fun season. We did. If you're just listening to this, you haven't listened to our episode with Sam Vecini, go check that out as well. That's on YouTube and on.
And check out Slam and Jam.
And then Slam and Jam on Saturday. We have over an
Vecini
hour
for
long.
an hour.
Over an hour with Vecini, where we just lob draft questions at him for a long, long time. So it's gonna be it's a really fun episode. We recorded yesterday, so check that out. We'll be back on Friday, and just a reminder: if you haven't heard about our draft party, we are having a draft party at Fassler Hall in downtown OKC next Thursday night from 6 to 10. Come join us. Come early if you want to get a table. I would suggest if you're just a diehard Thunder fan and you're eating up all this draft content and you live in Oklahoma City or near Oklahoma City, just be there, whether you have a friend to go with or not, because you will make friends there, because these are just people just like you. I promise. We've had a ton of people make friends at these draft parties. We have a crew coming in from Tulsa. We have a prize pack for whoever makes the longest journey to this draft party, which I know that some people are coming from the East Coast. So if you travel that far, we will probably give you a prize pack. We'll get you something that night. So yeah, join us. It's going to be a great time. The Thunder may not be in this kind of position for a long, long time, where they're picking 2 and 12. So this is like a huge moment in Thunder history, and I think it's fun to be able to be together as a Thunder fan base. So join us at Fassler Hall, June 23rd from 6 to 10 p.m. Thanks so much, and we will talk to you guys again on Friday.